Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first Thank Furlough It's Friday of 2021. It's another strange year, and I'm not really quite sure that saying Happy New Year is the best thing to say, but anyway, Happy New Year. We're hoping for better things this year. Don't know how many of you have managed to get your jab yet. I'm certainly, unfortunately, a long way down the list, I believe, so I'm staying locked away from everybody and everything, and I hope you are too, and you're all staying safe. As always, we have here today the effervescent, the redoubtable, enigmatic, Luca-winning companion of the parish, and of Kent, Jacquie Matt. Hi, Jacquie.
Oh, hello everyone. Follow that, as they say.
I know. What was the name of that silly man who always used to stand in the old music hall and come up with all those sorts of words?
Yeah, I can't remember his name now. I remember the old time music hall, but that's showing our age, Gary.
I know.
He was the MD, wasn't he, of it? I can't remember, with a top hat.
Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, never mind. So anyway, everybody, hello. We've actually got a lot to talk to you about today. Actually, Jackie's got a lot to talk to you about today. A couple of things I wanted to cover. First of all, this is not the first ICB TV of this year, as those of you who are ardent followers will know. We did bring out a Mike on Monday, first day back for Mike, Chief Inspector Mike. He was in on Monday and had a fair old following on that, several hundreds of you following him on that. His series is going down very well. I suppose at some stage we've got to go back to square one and start again for all those people who haven't heard the first ones. But at the moment, he's still going strong. It's also his birthday today, so congratulations, Mike. And he's also recently become a grandfather. So, you know, lots going on so far this year for Mike. And as we're talking of birthdays, tomorrow is Sujay's birthday. Those of you who had a session with Sujay will know all about Sujay and his fantastic way of talking to you as members and helping you along. And he's going to be doing even more this year. We've extended his brief a little bit, not just to cover onboarding people onto practices, but a broader membership brief. So he is now looking after member engagement, and he's not doing it all himself, but he is going to be looking at ways that he can get in touch with you and make sure that you're on board, know what's happening, but then on a regular basis, keep an eye out, make sure there's nothing that you want or that you're not getting, or in some cases, I believe some of you don't like to ask because we're a professional body. Well, that's exactly why we're here, so that you can ask questions. So that's something that we've got to keep banging our drum on, and as if to accent that point. This year, as always, ICB's offices, albeit home offices, closed over the Christmas period, as we've always done, because that's normally a quiet period. But knowing that some of you do have the need for specialist technical advice over the period, we did have the technical advice lines open. Not heavily used, but there were 7 people who rang on either Christmas Day, Boxing Day, or New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. So, you know, for some people out there, obviously it became very important. And so it's good that we can be there for you. And we're looking at all sorts of services that we can offer now on a 24/7, 365 days a year system. We're looking at our telephone system to see how that can work. I think we've learned a lot with the lockdown that we can do with our system that we've never had to do before. So we pushed the bubble a little bit, and it hasn't burst yet. So we keep trying. So I'm pleased to say that ICB, touch wood, is all up and running. We've got a few relatives that have got COVID and are having a few problems, and our hearts and thoughts go out to them. But at the moment, our team is going strong and all there and waiting for you. I must mention that although only 7 people took advantage of our advice line over Christmas, we had around about 2,500 emails. Now we're plowing through these, and some of them are very nicely sent congratulations on the year, having Happy New Year, Happy Christmas, etc. Absolutely love to get those. We're plowing through them. And then we're trying to get into those that are asking questions or want something else. And I know that we've got, at the moment, over Christmas, we've had, I think we've now got about 260 applications for membership, which we're just starting to process as this is our first week back. So bear with us, and we'll get there as quickly as we can, because you know, if you're good at what you do, you deserve ICB and we deserve you. So we'll be out there. Right, well, I can see that Jackie's wet her whistle, so I'm sure she's ready to go. Jacquie,
okay. Just one thing, just noticed in the chat line, Deborah Hughes has put up that it's her birthday too today, so happy birthday, Deborah, to you.
Yeah, happy birthday. Well, happy birthday to anybody that's got a birthday.
Yeah, anyone.
So far this year, or
and if you've got a birthday today and you're watching us, then even better. How about that then? Talking about technical calls and emails, obviously we are now through the EU transition and into the new Let's Live with Exports and the changes to that. And already this week have come through, I've had at least 3 extremely complex email queries about customs duties going in and out and exporting stuff and temporary imports and licenses that you need. And I'm trying to get the information to you as quickly as possible. But you know, I think I've actually been in touch with everyone that's contacted us so far, so I'm sure there are more. But I become more and more impressed with the complexity of the clients with which you're dealing with. One individual I know is actually employed as a finance controller for a business that's involved in imports exports. So that's very specialized, and we're trying to sort out what's going to happen with that. But what I want to do as briefly as possible today is to go through what's happening with the COVID and the furlough and the new grants that were announced earlier this week with the full lockdown, and a couple of just forewarnings of things that are going to come up over the next couple of months that we're going to be covering in more detail. So if you bear with me for 1 second while I share my screen. What do I want? I want this one. Slideshow from the beginning. Right, okay. So let's have a look at what's happening with furlough first of all. A reminder that claims for December furlough must be made by the 14th of January, which is next week, sometime 6 days. So you should be well on the way to getting those done now. They're the same as they were for last month, so that should be fine. Now, if you've made a claim and you find that you've under or overpaid, you have till the 28th of January to make any amendments to that, either by doing that online or by ringing them, A, if you can get through, and B, if you can't sort it online, then please do contact the lane. Now, one thing that's come up this week that we haven't actually had a query on, but I just wanted to confirm that with the lockdown and with the schools closing, we're back into what's going to happen if you're working or if you've got clients that are working and you have childcare, which is going to make it very difficult for you to work at home. Now, those of us, well, not me, not us, but those of you who have got younger children who are working, it is extremely difficult to do this. Now, it is possible for staff to be put on furlough if they are unable to work due to childcare responsibilities. But of course, that is down to a discussion between the employee and the employer. And of course, if they're on furlough, it means they can't work. But the employer is still having to pay national insurance contributions and pension contributions on that 80% of the salary. So I know a number of employers are being very generous on this, some are being less so, and hence lots of redundancies coming up and things like that. But that is on the gov.uk website. That was confirmed this week. Now, discretionary bonuses, such as things like a Christmas bonus, not included in the calculation of the normal wage. Now, one of the things that cropped up with me with a query this week is somebody rang me where a client, as you're aware, I think we spoke in December that if you had a virtual online Christmas party and the employer paid for food and drinks or whatever, and it came to the house and you had an online party, then that was included as part of the £150 non-taxable benefit, the standard staff entertainment. However, this particular member has a client who, instead of running a party, actually gave their employees £200 worth of vouchers to spend a variety of shops. And we were looking into this, and that is not to be considered as part of staff entertainment. That actually is a bonus which is being given to them, which is taxable and deniable and goes through the payroll. So I have a nasty feeling that that particular client is going to have a nasty shock when we look at the tax implications of that. But even if that was to be a benefit, because it was over £150, the whole lot would have been taxable anyway. So it's worthwhile being very careful if you're doing things. It's a bit late now in the face of it, but this is what came through on a query this week. Right, SAYS claims. Application for the third SAYS grant closes on the 29th of January, and a reminder that it has to be done by individuals, can't be made by the agents. And this is came out this week. This is the wording on who should and should not claim. Now it says we knew it was to do with a reduction in income, but what HMRC have said this week is the applicant must reasonably believe that any reduced demand or inability to trade, so this is income reduced between November and the end of January, results in a significant reduction in their trading profits. So we can't include enhanced income due to COVID costs, but it's only reduced income compared to what they would otherwise expect to have achieved. No comparison needs to be made to previous periods or years. Now, that's the first time we've seen that wording. Now, how they're going to sort that out, I have absolutely no idea. We've discussed about the impacts of applying and what's going to happen if HMRC think you've applied incorrectly. So that really is down to individuals. But I was talking to a member again this week. I've spoken to quite a lot of you this week, whose income has definitely been reduced currently because the clients are just not getting the information to her. Now, this is particularly to do with somebody who specialises in self-assessment, which is due in by the 31st of January. And I'm going to talk about self-assessment in a moment. So as with the first two grants are subject to tax and self-employed national insurance. And just a reminder that those of you who are doing self-assessments up to for 1920, so up to the 6th of April 1920, that have got to be submitted by the 31st of January. The SAYS grants do not appear in the current submissions we're doing. They will come in the current tax year. And of course, the deadline for filing those is not going to be until January 2022. So there's no SAYS grants. Sorry?
I think you just said 1920.
No, 19/20, 2019 to 20, yeah, not 1920. In the 1920 tax, 2019-20 tax year, those SAYS grants will go in the 2021 tax year. Okay. Now let's have a look at the grants this year. As you're aware, the Prime Minister announced a lockdown that was fairly swiftly followed up by our Chancellor issuing some more grants to businesses, and the total of the grants he's announced, this is for businesses in retail, hospitality and leisure industries through the latest lockdown, and this takes us through till the spring when they will revalue this, so £4.6 billion in total, of which there is additional funding for the devolved administrations, so 375 million for Scotland, 227 million for Wales and 127 million pounds for Northern Ireland. Now that is coming out from the UK government to the devolved assessments for each of the three to decide how they're going to allocate that to businesses. So what's coming next is what's going to happen in England. This is what the English businesses will be able to ask for. It's a one-off top-up grant of up to £9,000. Now, I was watching somebody on, I think it was Question Time the other day, and they were saying from a small pub or restaurant that don't assume everyone's going to get £9,000 because they're not, because it depends, as do previous grants, on what happens with the rateable value. So if your rateable value is under 15,000, then you're only going to get £4,000. This is a one-off grant, not a regular one, but a one-off grant. Between 15 and 51,000 pounds, the grant is £6,000. And if the rateable value is over 51,000 pounds, that's where the £9,000 kicks in. Any business with a rateable value over 51,000 pounds will not be eligible for the grant. There is a further £594 million worth of discretionary funding available to support other businesses. Now, I think from reading between the lines, this grant is available for businesses in that supporting industry to the hospitality and leisure. So if you're supplying food or whatever to the hospitality and leisure and your income has been affected because of the lockdown, then this is the grant that you should be able to go to. What I couldn't pick up is whether this is coming from central government or whether it's coming through the local authorities. Because there is a further discretionary grant. Now, this has been going on for some time for all lockdown areas, worth up to £3,000 per month for local businesses. Now, I think this is for any business that's been forced to close, not just in those areas of leisure, hospitality and retail. So any other businesses that have been forced to close. But if you think of the businesses on the high street, that's basically covered by those three main categories. And once the businesses are starting to reopen, they are apparently, there is £2,100 once they reopen. Now, this may be if they're partially reopened, but again, the detail is in the small print and I haven't had a huge amount of chance to go through everything yet. We still have 100% rate relief going for those three areas in businesses. The furlough scheme has been extended now to the end of April from the end of March. So that was announced before Christmas. That's gone on to April. We got that out just before Christmas, I think. And the 100% government loans been extended till March. Now, if I remember, the closing date for applications to that was the end of November, with all grants, all loans being acknowledged by the end of December. But it looks as though that's now been extended to the end of March. So that's all I had on furlough and COVID funding at the moment. So just a few things just to list there.
Jackie, before you go on to the return, something we've had a couple of inquiries through over the last couple of days, one of which I wanted to get your idea on, and that is a very small number, I appreciate, but a small number of retail, catering businesses, retail cafes, what have you, are actually now creating a larger turnover for themselves by delivering. Can they therefore still claim grants for the business that they've lost in their traditional table-based work? Because the reason that we were asked is one of our members has been asked to both make a claim and do the books for a business that had a turnover of about 180,000 that is now well in excess of £500,000. And she wasn't quite sure of the morals behind this. And we say morals, but I mean, obviously law as well. Have you come across this?
I haven't come across an answer to it. I've come across the question, but not an answer. Okay. The businesses are closed as such, but I suppose you could think of the delivery as being a different business. Now, as you know, you can furlough somebody and they can go and work for somebody else. So I suppose you could change the way of your business and still try and apply for the grants. Again, legally, I'm not sure where we stand with this. Ethically, I'm not sure where we stand with this either. I do know that a number of the larger businesses, some of the larger retail establishments, retail chains like Tesco's and Sainsbury's and that sort of thing, who have done extremely well out of this, have been handing back their rate rebates and have been paying their rates back to try to help out, because they're actually making more money out of this. So it's a difficult one, Gary. I accept that. Yeah. I will see if I can find out a definite answer, but I haven't come up with one yet.
As always, it probably depends how you ask the question and what the actual question is. And it is a very broad subject, but I think we've had, to my mind, only 2 people so far that have asked this, but I do think it's worth having a look for it, because it could be that others have thought about it but not asked, or other people are just looking the other way and putting through as per the client request. I don't know. I mean,
we have a couple of shops in our village here that do deliver. You can ring up and order stuff and they will deliver, or they will arrange a click and collect for you. I mean, our little card shop, for example, she's offering almost like a delivery service or a click and collect service. I don't think she's doing that much, but certainly some of the other shops where they've had their turnover has been reduced because the footfall is reduced, but the greengrocers, for example, is open. and they are doing deliveries, particularly to the elderly in the area. At no extra cost, they're doing free deliveries. So there are some additional costs involved on that. Yeah. So I don't know.
No. And the other one that's come up, I've noticed it recently on television and on radio, various loan companies saying take out a business loan now, nothing to pay for the next 12 months. And again, talking to one of our members who was saying they're just applying for one of those grants. It's somebody that ICB has worked with for a long time, one of the loan companies. And, you know, they're just saying that they have to be very careful as to what they say the ability to repay this loan is going to be in 12 months. So they had a long conversation with the loan company. The loan company said, look, you're a bookkeeper. We trust you. You're ICB. We know ICB. But at the end of the day, it's got to be realistic. So you can't expect people to jump back into the same turnover they were in from day one. And it looks unrealistic. But, you know, if there's a good case for it and we think that the businesses are going concern, then that is still going to be available. And the reason I mention this is, again, it's a lot of onus being put upon the voice of the bookkeeper. But that's exactly what we've always wanted and we enjoy. So just be very careful and make sure that, you know, you do the best possible job you can for your client, but at realistic rates, realistic terms, etc.
And also going back to the loans, I think you've got to be very careful from whom you apply for the loan, because I think you've got, with everything else that's going on at the moment, I think we have to be even more careful about scams, because the idea of the bounce back loans from the businesses, from the banks that are, or the companies that were within that scheme, is that, yes, there is a 12-month interest-free and non-payment period, but after that period, there is a 5-year period in which to pay back, although, no, actually, it's gone up to 10 years now, at a fairly reasonable rate of interest. So you do have to check the rate of interest that's being offered, because my concern is, if you don't look at the terms and conditions very carefully, these businesses are going to find themselves paying an awful lot of interest, because obviously the longer you extend the loan, even if the loan interest is quite low, you are going to end up paying a lot more back. Now, I do know of one particular client of a member who, sorry, I've got to switch my phone off. I do know of one particular client from a member where the use of the bounce back loan has actually been quite debatable as to whether it's a bona fide use of that loan, because now that the creditors are starting to demand payment, the loan has been used for other things and it's not there to pay the creditors or even HMRC, I have to say. So you are going to have to be very careful when your clients get involved in these loans as to what they're being used for. They should be used to pay off, you know, debts and to, you know, to help do that, because these are the ones that are backed by the government. So if the company happens to unfortunately fold and go into liquidation, there should be there is a backing from the government to cover those. But of course, I think they would look at what the loan was used for.
I think it's important that it's not used just to keep the directors solvent for the period when nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah. But again, I'm not too sure what our members do, unless, you know, if they've pointed it out as to what they can do if, you know, with the insistence on what the loan is going to be used for without actually backing out of the contract. But anyway, hopefully that's a one-off.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Okay. Okay, now just a quick thing about self-assessment. As you know, 31st of January is heading towards us very rapidly. Now, I spoke to a couple of members recently about the SAT deadlines. The corporation tax deadlines for submission were extended, but the SAT deadline hasn't been. And we've seen a copy of a letter that was written to, there is an organisation called the Professional Body Steering Group at HMRC, which includes ICAW and the tax CIOT and some of the others. And they have lobbied quite heavily to have the SAT extension past the 31st of January. Now, what HMRC have said, and there's a letter from Jim Harrer, what HMRC have said is that they are not going to extend that deadline because they don't want people to think, well, we don't have to worry about doing the self-assessment. But what they have said is that there will be no penalties. So the idea is that you still try and get your returns in as quickly as possible. But if you haven't got them in by the 31st of January, there won't be a penalty. But there is a comment on the HMRC website that says if your client does receive a penalty notice, then contact them and they will withdraw it. So there aren't supposed to be any penalties, but sometimes these things slip through. So do be careful, because particularly with one member who the bulk of whose business is doing self-assessment tax returns at this time of the year. And of course, clients haven't got the work to her. So now she's heading very rapidly towards the 31st of January and hasn't actually even had any figures. Now, if you think that the tax return which we're doing at the moment with the deadlines only go up to the 5th of April and lockdown only started on the 1st of March last year, then 11 months of the year that you're supposed to be doing should have been done and got ready as it was. But what happens, as we are all aware, with some of these small clients, they still do tend to do it right at the last minute, and you're scrabbling around trying to get the figures ready. And it's going to be very difficult to meet that 31st of January deadline anyway. By the time you've done all your due checking on the figures that have been sent to you, slightly differently if you've been responsible for the bookkeeping, but that's the situation at the moment. So the deadline still stands, but there won't be any penalties if it's late. You could put in an estimated return and get an estimated tax which needs to be paid, because if an estimation of the tax isn't paid, there may be some form of interest paid on the tax that's not been paid. So I don't think you can leave anything out and just not do anything, but it's going to be quite difficult, this one again. Okay.
Yeah, I think people need to be careful, because to my mind, if you're saying you've got to do it, but if you don't, we won't penalise you, is basically saying don't do it to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think if we're not careful, government is going to say, well, hold on a minute, we've had none in so far this year. We're now going to crack down again. I mean, I appreciate there will be problems like the one you've just mentioned, but I think if we can get our clients sorted and we can get the information, and let's face it, 99.9% of our members are now completely cloud-based.
Yeah.
Let's show that bookkeepers can do this, and if accountants want to hang on, then so be it.
And I think if we have members who are doing the books and the self-assessment, then there is less of an issue, because you will have had your books up to date to the end of the year, pretty well the end of the year anyway, so should be in a position to do at least a very good estimate of what the year was, and maybe if you haven't done all the year end, finish it later. But my concern is those who are purely getting the information from clients at this time of the year to do that, however well you've planned. And I know the members been chasing since the summer for the information. So
at the risk of poking my nose, and yet again, can I remind everybody that if you're doing the self-assessment for a person, you don't just look at the income from the business that you're also doing the bookkeeping from. I can see Jackie nodding there. Yeah. We had a lot of cases last year where people were putting money through their joint bank account with their wife, or they got another bank account, etc. And I remember saying, well, is it our responsibility? If you're completing the self-assessment tax return, yes.
Yeah.
And if your client says, well, I don't want to show you my other bank accounts, or I don't have any, but you know that they have, then you're getting into dangerous grounds, and you talk to us by all means, but you have to take action on that. A lot of people will do stuff and think, oh, well, that's not my income. My business is my income. Income can come from a number of different sources, and it's got to be included. So, you ask about pensions, you ask about interest on bank loans and bank deposits, etc. So you have the right to ask, is there any income? And I would, there is a form of words on the websites which says that you get them to sign to say, I have declared all income that I have received during the year. Do not sign something which says that you signing something which says I have prepared this from the records that I was given is not good enough, because if you didn't ask for the right records, you're not covered by that statement. You've got to get one from the clients to say, I have declared all income from all sources.
And I think I know a number of people have checklists that they go through, and they're asked to actually tick the specific details of income and expenditure. So that's my concern about doing self-assessments in a rush at the end of the year, is that have you as members actually got the time to do the full due diligence on those accounts that you should be doing? So it's always a problem, but I know members have this problem every year, and however much we chase. However, what I'm about to go on to later on might just solve that problem, but we'll talk about that in a few moments. Just a couple of other things that came out, not specifically to do with bookkeeping or our members, but I picked this up on the email from HMRC. As you know, I get a weekly update email from one of my contacts at HMRC. He sends it out to all of the people on the HMRC groups. Working tax credits and child tax and childcare vouchers. Now, for those of us, now that we're all working from home, if you or you have a client who's been claiming part of tax credits, either through universal credits or working tax credits for childcare, where you get vouchers to pay for young children for nursery, preschool nursery care. If the child is not going for 4 weeks, you have got to notify HMRC and remove that child voucher from your tax credits. Otherwise, you'll have to pay it back. And even if you have the ability to send them because the nursery is still open, but you choose not to send them for a period of 4 weeks, then you must stop claiming the child vouchers. The only time that you can keep that credit going if the child's not going to a nursery is if they're insisting that you still pay if you choose not to, you can't go because of illness or something. So that was the first one that I saw that came up today. And this is an interesting one, actually, and I'm going to show you a link to this. I think it was the Prime Minister some weeks ago that said they were looking at providing some free training courses for people that are at home that want or who have lost a job through made redundancy and want to actually improve their skills. Now, there is something called an outer skill, and this has been launched. I think it's been launched today, actually, because it came into my inbox this morning. It's a government campaign where individuals can take a free course from the Skills Toolkit. And there are quite a lot of interesting courses on there. I'm just going to show you the link. If you just bear with me, can I, where did I have this link? Right, this is the link. If you follow that, put in the Skills Toolkit on HMRC, on the gov.uk website, it tells you all the sorts of basic courses that you can take. So it says set aside an hour a week to take a free online course. So if you have a look at the courses, these are the sort of courses that are available. Now, there's some maths courses, computer essentials. So if you want to improve or pick up some Excel skills or something. There are also some very interesting little courses on business and finance and project business management, one on bookkeeping, one on sales, and there are various bits and pieces there. There's also one on writing a CV and things like that. So might be worthwhile if you or somebody in your family are interested in doing some studying. Some of these courses are 4 hours, some are a lot longer, some are 48-hour courses. Some interesting ones on computer essentials if you want to update your knowledge. So that's that. Right, okay. So that's the Skills Toolkit, which is quite useful. Now, what's coming up on the horizon? MTD for VAT. We will be covering this in a separate webinar completely, but just to remind you that everyone who has a business over the VAT threshold has been registered for MTD for VAT since April 2019. And all businesses voluntarily registered must start to show MTD VAT returns from the 1st of April 2022. Now, that is only 15 months away. And although it seems like a lot, there's quite a lot you need to do to set up if you're not already into MTD for VAT with some of your clients. Because as with the previous MTD, to do this, you're going to either have to have compatible software or the use of bridging software. Now, at the moment, you can submit your VAT return in one of 3 ways, either through the new MTD platform, which most of you will already be very familiar with, through software on the existing mainframe system. Now, if you are uploading your VAT returns through your software, you're currently going to the HMRC's mainframe system, or you can log on to the Government Gateway portal and manually enter your 9 VAT figures. Now, that's the one that the government desperately need to close down because there are errors. And I was speaking to a member earlier this week who rang me because they'd actually put the wrong figures up online. They transposed some figures, and how did they go about correcting it? And this is one of the reasons why HMRC are trying to stop this manual upload of figures, because I will hold my hands up to the fact that I will, as a bookkeeper, I will reverse figures. I will see figures and reverse them when I enter them. And everyone who works with me knows that I do that on a regular basis and have to check all my figures for me. So it's just the way I sometimes see numbers. They go the wrong way around. And I'm sure there are other people that do it as well. So by using your software, this is going to cut down a lot of the errors. And from this coming April, which is why we're picking this up now, the old mainframe computer is being switched off and everything is going across to the new MTD platform. It's called the Enterprise Tax Management Platform. And this is where all the MTD returns are being sent to. Now, if you have clients for whom you do a manual upload at the moment, you are going to have to go online and make sure that you've moved everything over to the new system. Now, I'm not going to go through today how to do that because we're going to pick this up later, but this has to be done before April. And one of the things that I'm going to start talking to you about over the next month or so is to try to persuade you all to look at moving everybody onto the MTD platform if they're VAT registered as soon as possible so that you're there before the deadline. If you're still doing the manual upload, it's exactly the same. You just need to register for the new system, move your clients over. And the other thing that they have to do is to make sure that all the correct email address is there because the direct debits for that will have to change. So that's what's coming up there. Now, if you already have a tax agent services account for MTD clients, not a problem. You just move your new clients over and that's not a problem. But if not, by April 22, you are going to have to set up an agent services account ready to move your clients over and add your clients to the list. Now, we're going to advise that you do this as soon as possible. And please be aware that there may be some additional costs for your clients if you have to use updated software. And if you have not yet become a tax agent and you're going to move into this field to do VAT for your clients in a different way, it can take quite a long time. It can take up to 8 to 10 weeks to get this set up and online. So you need to get this started fairly soon, certainly well in advance of the April 22 deadline. The next one coming up on the list is MTD for self-assessment. Now, this was on the cards about 4 years ago and was due to come into play before MTD for VAT came in, but they postponed it. We now know when this is going to start. It's going to be April 2023. This is going to have a big impact because it's for all non-incorporated businesses and also for landlords. So anybody who has a single property that they rent out, if their turnover, that's gross income from that property, is over £10,000 a year, then they are going to have to register for MTD for self-assessment. And that's going to mean doing these quarterly uploads of data from a software package or from a spreadsheet using compatible bridging software with a final adjustment made at the year end. So for members who are only doing self-assessment once a year, this is going to involve a big change for you. Okay. Now, if the business is also VAT registered, these uploads shouldn't be a problem because you'll be able to link them together and do them from your software. So they won't actually be a problem. So the biggest changes for this is going to come for members who do self-assessment for non-VAT registered clients alone. And that's going to be where the big change is going to come. And the other one that's come out fairly recently is MTD for corporation tax. Now, again, this was due to come into play round about last year, but was put off. There is a consultation document come out, which I'm just starting to work through now. But as far as I've seen, there isn't an awful lot more going to be involved in that than there is in self-assessment. And it's not expected to become compulsory until April 2026 at the earliest. So we have got quite a long time to go because they're going to allow 2 to 3 years for MTD for self-assessment to come into play, and then they'll start to bring in corporation tax. So that's everything I've got on that. So if I can somehow stop sharing my screen, if I can get back to it, let me close that down.
Right.
I will be if I can get back to a full screen.
There's a lot more watch this space.
A lot of watch this space, yeah.
And I think it's very important now that our members do keep completely up to date with what we're telling them. Yeah, we've got to protect everything that we do. We've got to make sure we're doing it correctly, and there is no skipping through things that you're not qualified to do, as far as we're concerned. No. It's a dangerous thing to do. A little knowledge is unfortunately dangerous, and particularly with self-assessment tax, which is so black and white, really, in many ways, that you have to make sure you do it right, and you know, you can't expect just to muddle your way through it. It's not just I can do bookkeeping, so this is dead simple. It's not. There are a whole set of rules there that you've got to learn, and you know, we've got really good training providers, you know, like Training Link, Ideal Schools, that have been doing these courses for years, and really that's what they're there for. They're there to help you, and you need to get to learn these things. The other one, I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier, is payroll. We are getting such a huge increase in the number of you that are winning clients now, who at the moment are just doing payroll and then later going on to the bookkeeping. And some of you have got a bookkeeping client who then wants to do the payroll. And you can't muddle through payroll either. I mean, it's a very difficult subject if you're just trying to work it out for yourself. You've got to get the knowledge properly. And look, you've all done your exams. You all know what it's like. And, you know, don't ruin everything by jumping into something that you think you're going to be okay at and you're going to muddle through, because you won't. And, you know, with ICB now is hoping to become one of the new endpoint assessors for the level 5 payroll apprenticeship. So, you know, the payroll is getting higher and higher and higher because it's important to people, and particularly last year and now for the rest of this year, so many things are happening, so many things are changing. We must get that right. So yeah, anyway, everything is available to you. All you've got to do is, you know, if you don't know how to get hold of it, then talk to us, but you know, you've got to take this seriously.
Okay, let's have a look at the question. Lots of, oh, you're busy today, lots of questions coming in. Oh, right. We have a question here from Sandra. I have a client with seasonal staff on a fixed term contract, all Bulgarian with pre-settled status. The contracts are due to end soon as the packing season work will be ended and the client won't have any more work for them. If they cannot travel home to Bulgaria due to COVID restrictions, can we furlough them? Client has said they can stay in the accommodation for free if they can't leave the country. Now, my answer to that immediately is I think, yes, you can, because if they're currently there, even if they're on a fixed contract, I think in the very early days, fixed contracts could be extended. And if they can't get home, I think probably if they've got the requirements to be doing things now, then you should be able to furlough them. What I would say is they obviously have to have, they have to have been able to have been furloughed from the start of whenever this was, 1st of November. So assuming if they're on the payroll and the PAYE has been done, I think that's probably okay to furlough them from now on. But however, if you haven't got any work, I don't know, because it is a job retention scheme.
The other thing is, Jackie, I know we're going to cover this, I think probably next week or the week after, I'm not sure, but there is a whole new set of rules for who can actually work in the country. And so if you've got people like that, it takes you into a whole new area, because there are listings now of all occupations. Bookkeeping is one of them. Yeah. You have to apply for the ability to stay in this country and work.
You have to also, the people who are employing them have to become I think they're referees or something they're called. Yeah. We did put something up on the I think there is something on the Brexit Hub. Certainly, I have put some more information up on there over the last few days about employment status, and I will do some more. My concern about this is that for it is a coronavirus job retention scheme. Now, if the job is not there, then they can't be furloughed. So, Sandra, I need to grab a pen from somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with seasonal work. The fact that they're here, seasonal work. If it's, you know, if you can't pick raspberries in January, I don't see that you can furlough for that job. Really, it doesn't. If they
no, because there is no job, is there? And it's more like no. Sandra, I will look into that and get back to you as quickly as I can. Probably Monday now. I'll try and get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
Hello, Jackie. Sorry, I had to say, all right. Do you know if the date for eligible employees has been changed for the CGRS to be on an RTI submission by the 31st? No, I don't think it's changed. I think the deadline was still the 31st of October. I haven't seen that has changed. So if they weren't on the RTI before, because if someone has been taken on since the 1st of November, I don't think they can be furloughed, is the answer to that one. Terry says, Happy New Year. Can you refresh my memory on the end for reduced hospitality VAT to end? At the moment, it's still the end of March, I think, Terry, but there is a push to extend that, but I haven't heard anything yet. So I think it's watch this space on that one. Oh, and Linda's come back with an addition to my SAYS grant. An email from HMRC, what if my client's business recovers after they claim the third grant? If you remember, I said in the slides just now that you have to have your impact, your income has to be impact for the 3 months. It's only for the 3 months. So if the business does recover, then it's not going to affect, you're not going to have to pay the grant back. However, there is a fourth grant that we're waiting to hear about, which kicks in on the 1st of February. So if the business improves after the 1st of February, it won't impact the third grant, but it might impact the fourth grant. Because again, I think you're going to have to look at what your business is doing from February to April. So at the moment, yes, we've got to, you already know you've got to keep your reasons for everything down so that HMRC can come back and ask to do that.
An MP recently said this is a lifesaver, not a pocket filler. And I think that's where we've got to be careful as bookkeepers to make sure that, you know, because we're professionals, we're supposed to know what we're talking about, you know, and clients, funnily enough, are not. So that's what we're there for. So we have to take that on board, I think.
Now, Kate's come up with an interesting one that it's the first time we've seen this question. So no, I have an answer already. The question is, should we reduce the payments on account for the current year if clients have had a huge decline in income this year? Now, basically, the payment on account for July was put on hold, so you didn't have to make the payment on account. So you would have made a payment account in January and possibly a payment on account in July. And what will happen when you do your self-assessment is it will look at what your tax commitment is for the current year, add the 50% on payment on account if you need to, and then reduce it by what has been paid by payment on account. So presumably the payment you made in January. When you come to do your accounts for next year, when you come to do your accounts for the current year and you're looking at reducing payments for next year, then if you think your income is going to be impacted again for the next year, you could reduce your payment on account. But please remember, if you do reduce the payment on account and the business then earns more than you anticipate and you haven't covered the basics by the payment on account, there will be interest payable and possibly some form of a penalty, but certainly interest payable on the tax that hasn't been paid up front. So you do have to be quite careful and only reduce the payment on account if you're absolutely certain that that's the best estimate that you're going to have. And that's going to depend on when you do your self-assessment returns, because presumably if you do them obviously in April for the current year, you'll know what your income and expenditure is going to be, and you can work out what the payment on account should be because you'll have an estimate of the following year. So it's very difficult to know where to go without actually looking at specific figures on that. Desi's asked, will the slides be up on ICB? Probably not. We won't actually put the slides up because they're just notices for me to go through. You can obviously get them, you can replay this video and you could go through them and get the information from that, Desi. Right, okay, Sandra's come back. Have HMRC decided if MTD DAX will apply to farming sole traders or partnerships because of farmers averaging? Now, funnily enough, I've sent Garry an email on this morning when we're starting to talk about the MTD and how we're going to get the information out to you. Farming is a huge issue for MTD. Now, the reasons for this is the averaging on tax and when you put up your quarterly figures. But not only that, without going into too much detail, the MTD, you have to do an MTD upload for every different section of your business. So if farmers, a lot of farmers have had to diversify, and that means you could have your farming, you could have subsidies coming in, you could rent out property, you could have a dairy making cheese, and they're all kept to slightly different businesses, but with a single year-end tax return, particularly if it's a partnership or a sole trader. Now, the answer to this is I don't know, because the tax specialist at the National Farmers Union is a gentleman called Michael Parker that I've known for a number of years and for whom I have a huge respect, and he's in there fighting for farmers. He's given evidence to the Treasury Select Committee. He's on all the MTD meetings, and he's in there fighting for you. But at the moment, it's exactly the same as it always is, but farming is a great issue, and it's probably going to be the biggest issue to do with MTD for self-assessment that there's going to be. So at the moment, Sandra, I can't answer that, but we will let you know as soon as we've got any information. Let's have a look at the rest. Desi's come back with regards to payroll. What happens to expats? I've been trying to obtain information but finding difficulty. The only thing I have picked up this week is national insurance, and if you're working abroad. Expats living abroad, if you're sort of retired and living abroad, I don't know. The only thing I've picked up is the amount of time that you can spend in Europe, which is it 180 days or 90 days in every period of 6 months, I think. So again, it's watch this space for that one. And Sandra's come back and said they have, these are her Bulgarian workers. They have EU pre-settled status, so their employment rights are UK and the same as before, and they can come and go. Do they have to be careful as to how long they are outside of the UK, though? Yes, I think there is probably going to be a limit, because coming in and out, it might very well affect their status. Unfortunately, that side of it is not something I can answer, because I can do all the accounting side. But when it comes to HR and employment status and that sort of thing, we probably need to get some other information for you.
We're actually working on getting somebody to come and do a program for us. They are hedging their bets a little bit at the moment, because it's still early days even for the experts. But I think within the next 10 days to a fortnight, we will have a special program, and so look out for that. We will obviously send an email to everybody about it, just to make sure we get that. It's great.
Yeah, good. Okay, couple on the question and answer. Maggie has a small client who has continued to trade, but turnover is down by 25k per month. I'm assuming that says. It's a mailing house, cannot see any support available in the form of grants. No, I think the answer is no, because most of the grants are there for businesses with rateable value. So particularly if you're working from home, there are no grants available for you. If your turnover is down, if you are a sole trader, then you could apply for the SAYS grant. If you are a limited company and employed, then you might be able to part furlough yourself. But again, on the question time program that I was watching the other evening, they had a self-employed person who works from home there, and she was saying there is very little help for the self-employed working from home apart from the grants. And if you have a limited company, you're not even entitled to those. So it is extremely difficult. And unfortunately, these are the group of people that have slipped through the cracks.
I think the thing is that the self-employed working from home, I'm again watching it on the news and various people being interviewed, that is such a broad spectrum of people. You know, there are some people working from home making bits of jewelry in a very small way, right the way through to people working from home running major mail order businesses. I mean, that's where the White company started from, of course. You know, husband and wife working from home. So it must be very difficult to try and decide who to give money to. But I think it all has to be done on an individual basis, unfortunately.
Debbie's just come back on that and said there are discretionary grants available from local councils for small businesses that do not incur business rates. Check on the website for your local council. So thank you for that, Debbie. So maybe that might be,
if you remember, but it is down to individual councils and councillors making those.
It is very much a discretionary grant. So yes, try your local authorities. And Judith said, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Judith. I have a company that was furloughed in the first lockdown and then worked until now and are furloughing staff again. Did we confirm, do I still use the 80% of the March 20 figures, or can I recalculate on the new minimum wage? I looked this up today because I knew this was going to crop up, and I've had one query. Yes, if the rules are, unfair though it might seem, is that if they were able and eligible to be furloughed in the first tranche, then you use the old calculation figures for the wage. If they started since then and they couldn't be furloughed, you use the wage, their average wage, between when they started after the 6th of April and the 1st of November, and they calculate that. Now, that's an anomaly because you could have two people now working on furlough, one on the old rate and one on the new rate, which is very unfair, but those are the rules as I understand it at the moment, Judith. And one more on childcare vouchers. If a nominal £2 per month is taken to hold open the facility, is this okay? I'm not sure. You might have to check with gov.uk on that one. I have to say, if you're not actually using it and they're not charging you the full amounts, or the nursery is not open, then I think possibly not. Because of course the nurseries who are open at the mainly open at the moment, we've all been through for the early years provision how you do the furlough and that, and we did a lot of work with the focus group on that early on. Okay. Yeah, that sounds to me more like the nursery saying, look, can you give us some money because we need to stay open and so that we can be here afterwards. I don't think it's probably some sort of charitable type donation by the sound of it. I don't know, but just it's almost like a deposit to book your place. It's not actually for current childcare. So I think it's like we're saying, okay, I want to put myself on a waiting list for when they reopen again. So I would think no, but I wouldn't say definitely. Just a couple of things I'd like to cover. It's my words of warning again, as always. You know, I come up. Jackie does all the nice stuff that you're interested in, but I've got this stuff which is none the less important. Firstly, thank you to Lydia, who says, "What happened to Dress Down Friday?" Well, I've been dressed down for so long now. Regardless of Friday, I'm really pleased to be wearing a shirt and tie again. To be honest with you, and yes, I've got another question. Just out of interest. I am wearing trousers as well. And interesting enough, for those that weren't with us before Christmas, when Garry moved, you'll remember, some of us will remember that the reason he did dress down was he couldn't find his ties in a packing box, but he did find them a couple of weeks before Christmas. So and display all of them. Yes, yeah. Well, I have found them there. So anyway, I'm enjoying. I feel much better in a shirt and tie. I always do. But anyway, right. Professional indemnity insurance. As a practicing member, you are required to have professional indemnity insurance. It's part of the rules of being a member of ICB. And we offer you a system through Kudos. If you don't want to use that, you are perfectly at liberty to go to somebody else. However, just a word of warning, you must make sure it's professional indemnity insurance. Any other insurance you want to get is fine. You can have that, you can be insured up to the hilt or get no other insurance or whatever. The bit that you require for your membership and to keep you compliant is the professional indemnity insurance. Now, we've had a couple of problems recently. We had one of our people who was off for an extended period. She hadn't completed a COPE agreement with anybody, so she just dumped her clients for something like 6 weeks. Now, she is being sued by one of her clients because they're being told that they haven't applied for, I think probably something to do with COVID, and they should have done, and now they can't have that money. So she's being sued for that. So she's gone to her insurer, only to find that she hasn't got professional indemnity insurance. She's got public liability insurance. That has nothing to do with it. And at the moment, she's out there on her own. She has got no cover. Now, obviously, we'll help all we can, but that's it. We can't do anything. You're not insured. You've broken the rules and everything else. But a couple of other people that our inspectors have been out to recently have been caught out as well. One lady was convinced she got professional indemnity insurance because she'd bought compliance insurance. Well, compliance insurance was there just to make sure that she paid her tax, and if she didn't, there would be somebody there to assist her. It's nothing to do with her clients, let alone the wrong insurance. It just covers her. So
I would ask you again just to look at your policy and make sure it's in there and that you are covered. It covers you against errors, so that if you are sued by a client or anybody, anything else happens like that, somebody is there to fight for you on your side. Now, we can provide you with technical advice and legal advice as always, but that can only go so far. So the lady that suddenly found out that she'd been sued and she's got no professional indemnity insurance, the reason I know about it is she came on to me to complain and say she'd been on to our free legal advice, but they refused to put together a court case for her as part of our free service. That's not what it's for. It's to give general, short, sharp bits of advice. We can't mount a £50,000 campaign to stop somebody getting sued. That's not what that is for. You know, that's what your insurance is for. So please be very careful. Now, don't go mad and get £1 million cover or anything like that. Really? No, you really don't need it. I mean, 5 times turnover is what some people say. Okay, fair enough. But let's be realistic. What could you be sued for? And if you've got any doubts, then, you know, talk to Kudos or talk to us or whoever. But just make sure that you are covered. Now, public liability insurance is important to you. I don't want to tell you not to be insured for things that you need to be covered for. If you've got, when things change, you've got people coming to your house or you're going to them, and it's to stop, I don't know, somebody walks up to your front door and a slate falls off the roof and parts of the hair for them or something rather, all that sort of stuff. Car insurance, make sure that you can carry work in that car. Now, you're not a traveling salesperson, so don't get tricked into saying, oh, well, I'm a traveling salesperson. You're not. You're using your vehicle to go from A to B. And normally, and you need to check on the small print, it allows you to carry goods to enable you to do the work once you get to this site. So again, don't go mad and fill in something which says that you are a traveling salesperson and all this sort of stuff. And also, if you are renting a property, or in some cases, even if you've got a mortgage, make sure that you can run a business from your home. Because if you've got a limited company and you can have a registered office somewhere and you therefore are just working from home. But if you are a self-employed person and you do all your work from home, all of your materials are there, your computer's there and everything else, some people class that as working from home, and that can upset your lease agreement or anything else. It's just basically a word of warning. We are about, and again, I'm not quite sure how, we will be putting some extra material up on our website for GDPR. We've come out of Europe. Basically, you've got to be careful exactly as you were before. But there are also a lot of people around at the moment, again, trying to make money from poor suckers who will pay lots of money to get advice that they already know or they don't really need or anything else. And the Information Commissioner's Office has just released a whole set of material which we're going to see and we're going to put on our own hub for you, including a bit of a myth buster, because, you know, the frighteners are out there already. Now that we're out of Europe, you've got to have an agreement with every single country, all this, that, and the other. Look, wait until you've seen it in writing from us, or if you need it quickly, go onto the ICO website. Again, don't listen to some bright spark who rings you up and wants £100 a month to give you cover. It's not like that. So again, we're working as fast as we can to get this done. We're having to hire in some experts because we want to make sure we get it right. And in fact, we've already brought in our own person, Feli Tafora, who is experienced at this, and she's making sure our GDPR policies are all up to date and that everything we're telling you to do is up to date. So she'll be working on that as well. Right, Jackie. Sorry, I've been interrupting you a lot.
Okay, that's right. No, it's only one other question coming up from Judith about agreements for furloughs. She's saying, if there is an agreement for the first furlough, does that still stand, or do they need a new one? The answer to that is it depends what wording was on the first one, I think, Judith. Yeah. I mean, if it was specifically to cover a period of time, or it was for the original fixed furlough, then you may need to amend the agreement to cover flexible furlough and the working hours and that sort of thing. So I think it's going to depend on, as it always does with these things, employment rights, your agreements with them, whether things change, it's better to renegotiate than not negotiate and then have it come back at you at the end of the day. And the only other one, Desi came back. She didn't quite get the answer. I think it was on the expats, Desi. The answer to that is I'm not sure, but I will look it up. There is some information on what happens if they're working abroad with national insurance and what happens on that. We've just put it up on the Brexit hub. I think we really ought to find a different name for that now because we're out of that. But and before Christmas, if you remember, I did 2 webinars one on import VAT and one on export VAT with trading abroad. And we were looking, I did say I would follow up on something on online marketplace selling, so selling through things like Amazon and eBay. I did say I would get something out in the new year. We are looking to run a special webinar on that within the next 2 weeks. I'm just finalising the information and you will hear about that fairly soon, but I think we will try and get that done before the end of January.
Okay, Mark Watson-Gandy, who some of you may know, he was our original head of professional conduct regulations, and we still work very closely with him. He is quite a prolific author, and he has just released a book on contract law. It's not a huge tome, but it's a very helpful tome, and it's written in language which is understandable, easily understandable. And we're going to be giving away, just a second, where is it? Where are we?
Just while Gary's gone, Harriet's come up and said, thank you very much for the information. Got to collect the children from the school. We'll watch the rest later.
Right.
You're welcome.
I should have picked this up before. This is it. This is Mark Watson-Gandy's book on contract law, simple contract law, a brief introduction to English contract law. It's written very much as Mark speaks. He's great fun. So what we're going to do, we're going to give some of these away. Mark has actually agreed to sign some. I'm not sure they'll be worth a fortune at any time soon, but nonetheless, it'd be nice to have Mark's contact on there. And I'm going to try and get him on just to talk about a few basic things, because I know contracts frighten some of our members and frighten members of every organisation, to be honest with you. And, you know, you've got solicitors out there that if it's not 500 pages, it doesn't mean anything. And Mark is more of, if it's got more than one, it probably doesn't mean anything either. So, you know, we hope to meet in the middle. Mark has agreed to come on and say a few words. I haven't got a date from him yet because he's just got himself a very large case. And so he's working on that. And yeah, that's going to be quite a prominent case. But he's going to come on and we're going to ask a few questions online, see if any of you have got any answers, and you'll get the chance to win one of these books. But anyway, if anybody wants to rush out, meanwhile, we will have some available to purchase. And if I knew how much it would cost, I would tell you. I think it's only something like a £5. But anyway, so that's something else coming up. And we're looking at ICB TV for this year. We've obviously had the Christmas break, so we haven't had too many meetings about such things at the moment, but we are coming up with lots of ideas. We're certainly going to be doing something, as I said, on payroll. We'll be doing something on self-assessment tax. We'll be doing more on the new MTD rules and everything else. And we can't squash all these into our Thank Furlough It's Friday. No. So we will be splitting this up a little bit. If there's a particular area of your work that you think you would like some additional help on, or you can think that others might, then let us know. We're also looking to do something for students. The difficulty we have with our students is that you work through so quickly that you only get to see 1 or 2 of these before you then start moving into the membership meetings. And a lot of students come into this anyway. And we're also very lucky that we've got some really, really good training providers. So they're good at their training. You don't need to ask too many questions. So anyway, but we're looking at that. As I say, if you've got any bright ideas, anything else you want. Jackie, anything more from you?
Yeah, Sylvia says, can you put the book up again? You took it away too quickly and she didn't write the name down, the title down.
Simple Contract Law. A brief introduction to English contract law. It's by Professor Mark Watson-Gandy, and it's illustrated by Gordon Collett. It's actually some funny illustrations in there. And
it says thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, actually, Gary, talking about contracts, I had an email, technical query came in. A client issues in the invoices with all the contracts of the invoice, the conditions, terms and conditions, which is a whole page long in very small type. And she uses HubDoc to process all the invoices and upload them. But what HubDoc does is tries to read every single word on there, and it just takes one look at this and says, yeah, can't do that, and dies on her. And the client is apparently insisting that this has to go on every single invoice. And she was asking whether it was possible for that, is that true, and for it not to happen. And I had a look up on terms and conditions, and it doesn't actually specify, as far as I can see. It does list what's got to go on there, but not all the small print. So it was just an interesting one. We haven't got time to follow this up today, but maybe in future we can look at how you deal with things like this.
It's a good one. We could ask Mark, perhaps. As far as I'm aware, terms and conditions, for example, we couldn't get all of our terms and conditions on the back of a practice license or something like that,
No,
or one of
no.
our, because we've got so many. I think you can put, please refer to the terms and conditions. It's like everything else. I was doing something last night and it said, you agree to our terms and conditions, and I ticked yes. I have no idea where they are or what I've committed myself to, but I know.
It's those terms and conditions are a nightmare, aren't they? And if you can read the print that's that small, and if it's anything like me as well, and I'm sure everybody else, you do trust
Just
these things. And
over,
I think it depends what you're buying, though. There are times when you really should read the terms and conditions, but if you're just buying something online, then
so I mean, but if the client is demanding that goes on, then I think the client rules. If they want you to have a pink invoice with blue writing on it, again, you can persuade
my question back to her was, what are you actually using HubDoc for? Are you using it to input into it and to send it out to the client, or are you simply using it to go back to upload this into your account software, in which case you could just scan the first page and not the second page. But I think it depends how you're actually using HubDoc. And I have to say, it's not a software I've used, so I don't know.
And we say that other similar softwares do exist. We're not trying to promote or knock down HubDoc in any way at all, but it's very easy to get the information from you.
Oh, I mean, I think this particular member thinks HubDoc is great. It's just that when you've got this A4 sheet of, as you've all seen them, haven't you, on the back of the invoices, that no software is going to be able to read and interpret every single word. Sylvia said some people have too much time on their hands if they have time to read the T's and C's. T's and C's are usually referred to in the information on the website, actually. And someone's just noted this week that QBO T's and C's say you should regularly archive your files. No online software gives that option that I know of. So that's one that's going around. And Desi said she would love to have a signed copy of the contract law book, in which case, Desi, I think you're going to have to come on to the session when we run it and answer the quiz and win one.
Yeah, we'll have some more details about that. The archiving thing is interesting because a lot of people use Word, and every time they alter Word, the old system goes. So anything that they update, they lose all record of anything that's happened before. So that's something that people need to take into account. Jackie, you and I, on many occasions of the past, have fallen a cropper whereby we've looked at the wrong version.
Yeah.
And rather than look at the latest version, So.
And I had a problem actually with because I bought a new computer in the autumn last year, and everything now is saved because I've got Microsoft 365 and it's all new. Everything is now saving to OneDrive. And I didn't realize that even in my documents folder on the PC, if I open up a document and I don't save it with a different name and I make any arrangements, it auto saves it and overwrites the old one, which under my old system, it never used to do so. And when I do certain things with ICB, I have to remember to rename the document before I make any changes to it. So that's something else to watch out for if you're using OneDrive.
Yeah, particularly if you're sending the document to 2 or 3 different people and you slightly amend it for somebody, you've got to remember that it will actually go through, find any time that document's been produced and change.
Yeah, and the important thing is that if you want to make any amendments and have it as a new file, you have to save it first, because you don't actually save it as you save a copy and you have to rename it and then you can make the changes. So I have to do that on a regular basis. However, that's just me.
Life is fraught with little challenges. So anyway, I think we're probably coming to the end of this now.
I think we're coming to the end of the questions.
I mean, the main
oh,
thing
sorry, Susan's saying, how can you recover the overwritten document? The answer is I'm not sure. I tend to use most of them from emails when I'm doing it, and you can go back and amend it and undo the changes, I think. I don't know. Sorry, Gary.
No, it's fine. I was just really trying to wrap up by saying that, you know, I said at the beginning, it's difficult to say Happy New Year, but Happy New Year anyway. We all are pinning our hopes on various vaccinations, and apparently a third one has now been agreed today. So I don't know whether that's got to be -70 +4 or giving it away in ice cream vans or what. I don't know what's going to happen with it at all. It's not a job that I would like to have to fight with. Interesting. I don't know how many of you watch Boris Johnson's briefs that he gives every day. Now, I didn't see this one. June watched it, but she said that one of the journalists came on and said about hospitals not being full. And the expert got very, very nasty.
I saw that one.
You are lying. And he named BBC. You're going into hospitals at 3 in the morning when nobody's there, and you are lying, and you are killing people.
Yeah, I saw that. It was on yesterday. It was one of the specialists. I think it was yesterday that was. I saw that one.
And I know that somebody was, I watched somebody on television being interviewed, and he'd had COVID, and he said all of a sudden he couldn't breathe. And, you know, that's a particular thing that frightens the bejeebies out of me, having had problems like that in the past. It's a frightening thing. So let's hope none of you get it, please.
Gary, sorry, I was actually talking to a member yesterday who's just starting to get over it. She's been very poorly. I won't mention her name. And she was saying she's felt very fortunate that her son's partner is actually a COVID nurse and has been able to advise her on things to do and to keep turning over in bed and getting up and walking around and all sorts of things to help with the breathing. And she said she really struggled, and she apologized in advance if she started coughing because she was getting over COVID. And I said, well, don't apologize for coughing. I'm just glad you're getting over it. So yes.
Tim Downey, thank you. He's just come back and said it was actually Simon Stevens, who's the CEO of the NHS. It's the first time I've heard anybody answer back. I'm often sitting there thinking, well, say something. So, yeah, it's journalism, I'm afraid. I used to work in newspapers, and I know the things that they used to get up to in a local newspaper. So I know that these things happen, and it's terrible. But it doesn't really matter. That's, you know, let's ignore that for a start. We just want to make sure that you're all safe, that you look after your clients. Whatever you do, talk to your clients. The big thing that's come out of this, I think, is communication. It's how well you communicate with your clients. It can make the big difference to them. It can make a big difference to you. You know, and we've got to get through this one way or another. And it's not easy. And we're all suffering. You know, we can't see our grandchildren. You know, we can't see our relatives. Some of us have got big birthdays this year, and it's going to be very difficult. You're going to have very small parties, you know, and but I think it's a short-term thing that we've got to protect the long term. So please be very careful out there, and don't just slip up. You know, we're all cloud-based. Just do everything you can in the cloud, keep it at that, but that doesn't mean you don't communicate. That actually should make you communicate more. Even if you're not due to talk to your client, you haven't heard much from them recently or anything else, send them an email, send them a bit of a newsletter, talk to them. You know, it's what's keeping this world going. Anyway, absolutely. Another soapbox, another day, he says, but we are here to help. And you know, the number of technical support calls that we're taking at the moment has just gone through the roof. And, you know, we're happy to do it for as long as we can, and that's great. So, first, thank Furlough. It's Friday, Jackie, of 2021. We'll be back next week. We may well be coming back with a slightly different title on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, if we can think of a rhyme. So, I don't know, taxing Tuesdays, wages Wednesdays. I haven't thought of Thursday yet, but anyway, we don't know. It'll be something, because you know, we're going to give you lots of shorter, sharper meetings. I think probably easier, and then you can pick them up and you can pick out the bits you want. So thank you once again, Jackie.
Nice to be with you all.
And yeah, we very much look forward to seeing you next Friday, if not before.
And keep safe, everyone, and keep warm as well.
Yeah, -1 down here.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
See everybody. Cheers.
Take care, everyone. Bye.